What is up, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. Today is a really exciting day for me because I'm finally going to install these sliders that I got for the Land Cruiser from White Knuckle Off-Road. In this video, I'm going to go over the process of the install. If you're looking for more details on the sliders themselves, I'll leave a link in the description down below to a previous video I did, which goes over the quality of the welds, the bends, the powder coat finish, all that stuff. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. I'm going to be starting with the driver's side first. Now, according to the instructions that came from White Knuckle, you're supposed to have the jack stands on the left and the right holding them up, just to, kind of where you want it, and then the jack in the middle. The microfiber towels are actually my own personal touch because God forbid if you scratch your sliders during the install. Now that I've got the slider kind of in place to where I want it, I'm going to be using the jack to lift it up so I can put it right up against the frame and get the U-bolts in from behind. So let me see if I can do that without it dropping on my head. So of course the sliders came with a bunch of these U-bolts and then some nuts, washers, lock washers. There's a bunch of them over there. But what I'm going to try to do is put the U-bolt around the frame into the slider, and this one is actually the middle one. I'm going to do the middle one first to get it kind of on there, and that way it'll kind of hold it in place. But you want to make sure you do not clamp on these brake lines. For the guys with the automatic height control, mainly the Lexus LX470s, you will have more hydraulic lines running along the frame. So make sure you be careful of those. I think you might have to bend a couple out of the way, but lucky for me, this is just a basic Land Cruiser. So it looks like I have plenty of space, at least for this U-bolt. So far I've got both the bolts in place. I haven't put the washers in yet because it's still kind of far away, but what I'm going to do is tighten them down so that way it pulls the slider closer to where it's supposed to be. Here you can see a clear picture of the U-bolt. On this one, the brake line is pretty far away from the center U-bolt, and I have it threaded just barely so that it's kind of held in place, but obviously you can see the huge gap between the frame and the base of the slider itself. That way I have a little wiggle room when I do the front and the back ones, because I still need to slide it forward and back and up and down and see what's the best fit. So let me try to get those guys on and see where we're at. So I just put in the rear U-bolt, and a part that's worth mentioning is that the brake line is actually really close to the frame rail. It's held really close. I'm gonna make sure that the brake hose, the brake line right here, is bent ever so slightly, so that way it clears the U-bolt without it rubbing and making noise in the future. So this is going to be the front leg of the slider. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I bent the brake line a little bit away from the frame. And now I have plenty of room to slip in the U-bolt. Go, and then you want washer, lock nut, and nut. Same thing for the top, obviously. Now there's a better shot of that brake line. You can see this is the brake line right here. It used to be butt up against the frame, but obviously now that space is going to be occupied by this U-bolt. I had to bend it away slightly, and it should be more than enough to clear any type of vibrations or rubbing or adjustments that I need to do to the slider still. Now the slider is technically bolted in, however it's not all tightened up. I'm gonna have to make some adjustments before it gets all tightened down. Now according to White Knuckle, the back of the slider should be flush with the wheel opening, so I might need the slider to go back, you know, maybe about a 1/4 inch, and then after that, as far as the adjustments between the slider and the rocker panel itself, it should be a 3/4 to 1 inch gap all the way to the front. So I've definitely got some adjusting to do. So right now I have the slider on here pretty snug as far as the bolts go. And what you want to do before you tighten it down anymore is measure the gap between the slider itself and the body of the car. So right now I have about a little over an inch, inch and a quarter. Same thing with the middle. And same thing with the front. So I definitely have it pretty level as far as compared to the car's body goes. And then you want to make sure you check that the slider is flush with the rear wheel well, which is pretty dang close. So I think this should be okay. Now I'm going to tighten up all the bolts, and we can move on to the passenger side. Another tip when tightening up these U-bolts, you want to make sure that they are both in there evenly. So you want to tighten the top nut a few times, and then you want to do the bottom nut. You don't want to do like, oh, let's tighten the bottom nut all the way before you do the top, because then your U-bolt will be like all like mangled and like misaligned. So this way you'll know that they go in fairly even, and also by how much thread that's coming out of each nut, you can kind of gauge like, oh yeah, you know, we're pretty good, or like, no, we're completely off. So that is a good way to tighten the U-bolts. And there is the passenger side fully installed. Now, one difference that I noticed about the passenger side was that there were no brake lines on the frame rail like there was with the driver's side. So that's definitely a plus. All you had to do was put the U-bolts in and you were good to go. A lot of measuring, making sure the back of the slider was exactly the same as the driver's side, and measuring the distance between the slider itself and the body of the Land Cruiser. I think like overall, when I measured from about the top of the slider here to the body, it was about an inch and a quarter all the way down. So I think I got it pretty good, but there is one last test. Okay, passenger side seems to be good. Driver's side's good too. So after a lot of measuring, tightening, and loosening the bolts, and eating a ton of dirt, these sliders are finally installed. So far, they definitely look great. They seem to be pretty sturdy, but only time will tell. That's it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button. And for more Land Cruiser and Overland content, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.